Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, May 19th. Hope everybody had a great weekend. There is a lot to get into. Massive news in the NFL, some potential rule changes. The conference finals are set in the NBA after kind of a disappointing Game 7 between the Nuggets and the Thunder, as well as it being set in the NHL. We'll break down all of those games, all of those series coming up in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, May 19th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our first topic here today, that having to do with the Denver Nuggets being eliminated in Game 7. This was a game that was decided in the late second, early third quarter. It started off good for the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets, who had Aaron Gordon playing on one hamstring. Aaron Gordon fighting through a grade 2 hamstring shows how much this team was trying to win this game. But at the end of the day, the defense of the Thunder was just too much. Nikola Jokic was held to his worst performance, and really you could say that about a lot of the Nuggets that showed up. Aaron Gordon, despite only having one hamstring that he was playing on, led his team in rebounds in the first half and overall, finishing with 11 rebounds on the night overall. But the story was the turnovers and that Thunder defense at the end of the day. That Thunder defense that had been their calling card all season long. Alex Caruso stepped up huge. They had 16 steals in this game, 23 turnovers leading to 37 points off of turnovers, and that was enough for them to pull away from this Denver Nuggets squad. The Nuggets, they really couldn't buy a bucket down the end, but at that point it didn't matter that much because the Thunder had just so immensely outplayed them to that point. And you can talk about the depth of this Thunder team. It's something that I think is a huge part of what they do, something that makes this Thunder team as good as they are. But that defense is what powered it. They struggled in the beginning of this game. Denver came out strong. Christian Braun started off hot early on in this game. Then he kind of cooled down a bit. Nikola Jokic didn't really have his greatest night offensively, really being hounded by guys like Alex Caruso. You had Jamal Murray, who they like to be that second option, 1 for 8 from 3, finishes with 13 points. Michael Porter Jr., who struggled all series long dealing with a bit of a shoulder injury, did not have a great series. This is a Denver team that just did not show up when they needed to. They could not make their shots, and this is simply a Thunder team that did. Right, you talk about J-Dub, there was so much conversation around him specifically. After what was a disaster Game 6, he shuts up all the haters. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander drops 35 points, an efficient 35 points, with only going to the free throw line 8 times. That is the type of game that we look at for the Thunder, and we say this is why this team won 68 games in the regular season. This is why this team was the best in the West now 2 years in a row. That defense is so overpowering. If they play defense like that, they can beat any team on any given night. It's not something that's going to be a guarantee. There's no doubt about that. But if they're able to go out, give their best, give their all like they did in this one, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's offense combined with Chet and J-Dub and whoever else is going to step off on any given night with how deep that team is, Alex Caruso's defensive effort is just going to be part of why this Thunder team is so dominant. The big question for this, outside of the Thunder moving on and how far they can really go, at least for me, is what is next for the Denver Nuggets? It feels like a chapter has kind of closed. Questions were asked to Jokic and to a lot of the other members of this Nuggets squad. Is the championship window still open? Jokic came out and said, we didn't win it, so it's not. Obviously, he kind of took that question a little bit differently, but his answer is not the usual one that you get, right? Jokic comes out and he says, "I don't play in hypotheticals." Basically, we didn't win it, so we couldn't have won it. The question was, could this core win a championship still? That is not the kind of answer that you want to hear from your superstar. Jamal Murray comes out and he says yes, because of course you have to say yes to that question. But I think what Jokic said was super telling about the state of this Nuggets team right now. They have fired their head coach. They have fired their GM. They do not have a draft pick in this year's draft. This is not a Nuggets team that looks like it's in shape to get another championship. And Jokic got one. That's good. You still have him, you have Jamal Murray, both on $50+ million contracts. You still have Michael Porter Jr., who I think is going to be a part of trade rumors, but he's getting paid $30 million. With the performance he put up in the playoffs, even with an injured shoulder, I doubt people are going to get him. Russell Westbrook is on a player option right now, and that's another big question for this Nuggets squad. Will they be able to get the depth back? Christian Brown is going to command $30+ million in free agency, or the Nuggets are going to have to pay him. That roster is already over $200 million. They're right up against that second apron kind of tax right there. It's not going to be easy for them to improve this team at all. And this was about as far as I think we're going to see. They got this far last year, 7 games against the Wolves. They lose. They got this far this year. They lose in 7 games to a Thunder team that kind of reminds me of the Wolves from last year, at least just a little bit. This is not a trend that I think is good for Jokic and the Nuggets. Jokic isn't getting any younger. And while he still is the best player in the world, there is reason for people to project that he won't be that forever, for much longer. And this is a Nuggets team that, like I said, does not have the kind of money, the kind of situation set up, the head coach, the GM set up, where this looks like a promising future. Now, do I think it's like Giannis where he's going to ask out? Absolutely not. He's getting paid so much money, and I don't think there is a world at all where Denver trades him, because they can still be competitive. They can be this top 4 seed in the West that makes it to the second round every single year. They can be that top 4 seed in the West that maybe occasionally can push deeper into the West, but with Victor Wembanyama getting healthier, with the Mavericks getting the first overall pick, with all of the young talent in the West, it is going to be incredibly difficult for this Nuggets team to win another championship. So you asked the question, or I posed the question, I guess, what is next for this Denver Nuggets squad? Is their window still open? No. The Denver Nuggets championship window is officially shut. And this was not the way that you wanted to go out. It was kind of felt like that for a little while, with Jokic being the engine that is keeping this team alive. We talk all the time about the non-Jokic minutes. They reared their ugly heads in this game. The Denver Nuggets just don't have the depth. And when Jokic isn't on the court, this is not a playoff team. It's incredible to say about a Nuggets team that is taking all of these great teams to 7, that is playing these tight series against the Clippers, against the Wolves last year, against the Thunder this year. This is not a Nuggets team that is good. You have the best player in the world that is carrying you with every single ounce of basketball that he has. And yet, it's not enough, because as we see in the NBA nowadays, you need more than one. And as much of a playoff riser as Jamal Murray is, he's not consistent. As good of a shooter as Michael Porter Jr. is, he's not consistent. They don't have anybody on the defensive side of the ball that you can really turn to and say, I need you to lock them down when Jokic isn't there. And even Jokic himself, not the greatest defender in the world. There are a lot of holes with this Nuggets squad. I think they found a nice head coach in David Alderman over there. He should be back. All the players seem to support him, and the core group of guys that are going to be there and continue to be a very good basketball team continue to support him, and that's important. But if the Nuggets want to keep their window open, they need to do one specific thing, and that is make a big trade for either a superstar, trade off of a big money asset that they have to sign more depth so that they can survive the non-Jokic minutes. Those are the two options that they have. I've seen things being floated around of a potential Kevin Durant trade. Now, the issue is, since they don't have any draft capital at all, like I said, no draft picks this year, what are they going to have to give up to get a guy like a Kevin Durant, an aging veteran that kind of fits their timeline a little bit more than if you were to, say, trade for a Giannis, which they're not going to trade for Giannis. They don't have the assets. They don't have the money to do that. So that one's out the question. But getting a guy who's in his late 30s, only has a couple years of really good basketball left in him, if any at all left, that's the kind of trade that they're going to make from a team like either the Celtics. Maybe this is a Nuggets team that takes a swing on a guy like Porzingis or a guy like Drew Holiday that can step up, play defense, and be a really good facilitator for them, even though that's going to be a tough spot with Jamal Murray on the floor as well. Maybe they take a swing at Kevin Durant. The Suns and the Celtics, I think, in very similar situations where they're trying to shed talent. But this is definitely a Nuggets team that if they sit on their hands this offseason and they do nothing, which they still need to find a GM first, which is huge, this is not a team that will ever win a championship with Jokic ever again. And that is tough to say because Jokic is still the greatest player in the world. There is not a single player that is alive today that is better than Nikola Jokic right now. And we can project out. Maybe Victor Wembanyama takes over. Maybe you have a guy like Anthony Edwards or Luka Doncic take over in a little bit. But right now, it's still Jokic, what he's able to do on the court, and you see his impact every single time he steps off the court immediately. That is the kind of gravity that the best player in the world has. But it's not enough to win a championship in the NBA nowadays. It really always wasn't enough to win a championship in the NBA. It's a tough league. And I think because of that, especially because of how brutal the Western Conference is, the Nuggets are going to have a really hard time getting back to the finals. And I don't think they ever win another one. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about this? Do you think the Denver Nuggets ever win a championship ever again with Jokic? Do you think this core, their championship window is shut? And what do you think is the next best move for them this offseason? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the teams that are still alive in the NBA. We have two teams in the West, two teams in the East. The final four are here. There will be a new champion crowned in the NBA. That's coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the Nuggets in Game 7 and what their future looks like with this current core around Nikola Jokic. In this segment, we turn our attention to the broader NBA. Two series remain, the conference finals and the NBA finals. We'll talk about who I think makes it out of each, the East and the West, and who I think is going to be crowned a brand new champion. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, A message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, May 19th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into everything that we need to know about the NBA Conference Finals. The series are set. The Oklahoma City Thunder, the 1 seed, led by the most probable MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, takes on a team that has been here and done that in the Minnesota Timberwolves. And by say been here and done that, I mean been to the Western Conference Finals, as Anthony Edwards led his team to the Western Conference Finals now 2 years in a row. A very impressive run. Let's break down this series. You have a young Thunder team, a Thunder team that has very little experience in the postseason, but whose postseason experience has been as a number 1 seed. They made it into the play-in tournament, and then the year after that, last year, they made the number 1 seed. That's 2 years in a row now, where the Oklahoma City Thunder have been the number 1 seed in a very crowded and a very good Western Conference. They have a defense that is so overpowering, led by Alex Caruso defensively, but what they do is they play with effort. The trade that brought Alex Caruso over, I think, is the reason why they are still alive in the playoffs. I don't think they win Game 7 without his defensive ability, his ability to shut down or at least slow down the best player on the planet in Nikola Jokic, and his effort in each and every single game, every time he's out there, that is really tough to deal with. But what the Wolves have is experience. They have players on that roster that have made deep runs. Of course, this is basically the exact same team that made the conference finals last year and lost to Luka Doncic in that series in the Western Conference Finals, but Anthony Edwards is back. And one thing that I will say about this series in specific is that there are a lot of similarities between the series this year, between the Wolves and the Thunder, and the series last year, between the Wolves and the Mavericks. But it's not the way that you think. This Oklahoma City team reminds me a lot of that Minnesota team last year. You have a team led by a superstar, a person that is coming out of the woodwork to be known as a face of the NBA. Anthony Edwards was that last year. This year, it is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. An incredibly strong defense anchored by anchored at just about every single position. Some of the best perimeter defenders in the league, Jaden McDaniels to Alex Caruso to Lou Dort kind of situation, right? A guy that you can just stick on someone and they will be shut down for the game. And then you have the depth, right? That is the one thing that I think sets them apart. That's not to say they don't stand a chance in this series against the Wolves, but you have a team that is led by Anthony Edwards that has developed a three-point shot. He didn't really have that in his bag, or at least not as efficiently in his bag as he does this year. He is the three-point king this season, the man who made the most threes in the NBA, shooting at about a 40% clip. This is going to be a very tight series. You have Julius Randle, who's playing his best postseason basketball of his career as a second or third option now that he gets to get his favorable matchups down there. Rudy Gobert is going to be able to go up against Chet. At least defensively, he's going to be an anchor down low. He's not necessarily the greatest when it comes to offense, but this is a Thunder team that, while they do like to shoot the three, as every single team in the NBA does nowadays, they also like to drive. Shai is one of the best drivers in the NBA. He drives more than anybody in the NBA, which is why he gets this label as a foul merchant. He drives so much more, and it's not really that out of proportion, the fouls that are called for him, I should say. But what Rudy Gobert is going to do is he's just going to make that a little bit tougher for Shai to deal with down low. Now, that's not to say that they can't shoot the ball, because as we've seen, they can shoot the lights out. They, on any given night, can drop 170 points. We've seen it happen once in each series where they drop 150 plus in a game. We saw it against the Grizzlies in that historic rout in that one, and then we saw it in a Game 2 rout of the Nuggets as well after they had lost Game 1. This is a team that is young, hungry, and scrappy, But you can say the same thing about the Wolves. Anthony Edwards is trying to prove something. He is someone that I think if he wins this series has a real chance to supersede LeBron James as the face of the NBA. Even if LeBron James keeps playing, which I assume he's going to keep playing, there is going to be a large contingent of people that think Anthony Edwards is going to be the biggest star because he has the personality to carry that. They win this series, they win the entire thing. That is going to be a very, very dangerous, or not dangerous, I should say, a very, very fanatical kind of fan base around Anthony Edwards, as much as it already is. But we saw Anthony Edwards get tired at the end of in the Western Conference Finals last year. He didn't have to go through a grueling 7-game series this time, eliminating the Warriors in 5, and getting a little bit more rest than the Thunder now have after doing a very, very tough 7-game series against Nikola Jokic and the Thunder. I think this is going to go the way of the Wolves. The Wolves, like I said, have a little bit more rest, and I think this is just the year that the Thunder fall just short. Now, that could have large reaching consequences in the offseason. If the Thunder don't win the championship this year, if they lose in 4 or 5 games, which I doubt it is, I think this is a long series because I think both of these teams are going to play very close basketball against each other. I'm taking the Wolves in 7 in this one, but the Thunder, if they can play defense like that, if they can avoid turnovers, if they can play clean, smart basketball, they can beat the Wolves in 4 games. The Wolves aren't going to sweep this series, but the Thunder, they have a chance to. And I just don't think with the fact that the Wolves are rested and the fact that the Thunder have just gone through a very hard-fought series, I think the advantage goes towards the Wolves in this one just a little bit. So I'm taking the Wolves in 7 as the representatives of the Western Conference. On to the East, we have a rematch of probably the best series of the playoffs last season, the Pacers and the Knicks. A second-round series last year that saw the Pacers eliminate the Knicks en route to a Eastern Conference Finals loss against the Celtics. Now the Pacers return, this time against the Knicks. The Pacers have had a lot of luck on their postseason runs, right? That's definitely a part of it, but that's not at all to discount what the Pacers have done. The Pacers have been an amazing team. They took out a Cleveland Cavaliers team, the number 1 seed in the NBA, the number 1 seed in the East, I should say, that was just head and shoulders in the regular season above everybody else. The Knicks killed a giant of their own in the Boston Celtics, and this sets up what is really a heated rivalry right now. The Pacers seem to find a way to get under a lot of different teams' skins. The Knicks, the Bucks, all of these different teams, they found a way to get under their skin because they play a very very pesky kind of game. They're like pests the way that they play. They play fast, they play hard, and they do not give you a second to catch your breath. The reason they can do that is because they have so much depth. So much depth. It's kind of the opposite of the Knicks. It's kind of the opposite of the way that Tom Thibodeau likes to play his squad. That's not the way that he does things. He likes to play his starters 48 out of 48 minutes. He likes to play his starters 60 out of 48 minutes if he possibly could. These are the guys that he's going to ride with, and these are the guys that he's going to die with. And he has quite the group over there. Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Cat, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby. Coming off the bench, you have guys like Mitchell Robinson that can come in and play a true center if you need a big man. Coming off the bench, if you really need more, you have a lot of really solid pieces that can come in and spell those starters for a little while, not to mention clutch player of the year Jalen Brunson going up against Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, Nimhard, all of these guys. Again, you can go super deep onto this Pacers roster. This is going to be an absolute battle. Of course, we saw it take place last season. Goes to Game 7 at the Garden where the Pacers take a historic shooting night, a record-setting three-point shooting night, and eliminate the Knicks on the road. Both of these teams have gotten better. The Knicks, they added Cat, they added Bridges. Those are 2 massive pieces. The Pacers, they added a lot of depth. They added they added a lot of guys that come in, and the rotations have completely changed. Obi Toppin was playing like a sixth man kind of role for them last year. He's kind of moved down to the bench a little bit, but he still comes in and gives a lot of energy. Tyrese Halliburton has been probably the most clutch player in the NBA, despite Jalen Brunson winning Clutch Player of the Year this year. Tyrese Halliburton goes 10 for 11 in shots to tie or take the lead with less than 2 minutes to go in fourth quarter in overtime. That is not a normal stat. To be 10 for 11, that is ridiculous. More than 90% from the field in those situations is not normal, but he has stepped up when the team needs him to step up. But he's also not a guy that is prone to drop 35, 40 points on you like Jalen Brunson is. He is going to kill you by not making mistakes. He's going to kill you by hitting all these passes, by being a great teammate. And that's what these Pacers do. I think the Pacers' pace is going to be a lot for this Knicks teams to deal with, especially with the way that Thibodeau plays his starters. That is a lot of wear and tear, a lot of energy to be spent guarding a fast-paced, high-octane offense like the Pacers. And it's not like the Celtics, who are also a high-octane offense, but they like to play ring around the rosy around the three-point line. They like to swing it across the arc. They like to stay on the outside. The Pistons aren't going to just shoot threes. They can shoot threes. They have some very capable and great three-point shooters, but they are going to kill you on the inside as well. And that is where I think the Knicks really can be taken advantage of, because Cat isn't the greatest defender. The Knicks probably have one of the best perimeter defensive teams in all of the NBA. You have two or three of the best perimeter defenders overall that in OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, right? Those two guys are just amazing defensively. But down low, Cat can get in trouble with an athletic big, like an Obi Toppin, like a Miles Turner, like a Pascal Siakam. This is not going to be an easy series for either of these teams, and I think it's going to be very similar to the one that we saw last year. Both of these teams, like I said, got better in the offseason over the course of the season, and both now are looking for a chance to win a title for the first time in case of the Pacers, and for the first time in over 50 years in the case of the Knicks. But these two teams, of course, have a long history as well. These two teams have met head-to-head in the conference finals in the 90s. They have long story rivalry between these two teams, and I cannot wait to see how it goes, because I think this is going to be one of the best series that we have seen in a very long time in the Eastern Conference. I think overall, I'm taking the Pacers to win this series. I think they just go too fast, and I think the amount of minutes that are put on the shoulders of these Knicks starters, of these Knicks key players, I just think the Pacers are going to be able to take advantage of the minutes when they're not out there, and even when they are, they might be a little bit tired. So I'm taking the Pacers, although it might start in the favor of the Knicks a little bit. I think this series looks like the Knicks take a 1 or 2-0 series lead. The Pacers crawl back to tie the series back at home, 2-2, and then it kind of gets a little out of hand where the Pacers end up winning that miniature 3-game series inside of that 7-game series, as that sets up a Timberwolves versus Pacers finals, where I'm taking the Indiana Pacers to win the NBA Finals behind Tyrese Halliburton, behind that depth, behind Pascal Siakam, behind Miles Turner, behind everybody in that Indiana locker room. I love this Indiana team, and I cannot wait to see both of these series, because I think both of them are going to be absolutely phenomenal. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the ice, the NHL. They have also reached the conference finals after the Stars eliminated the Jets in overtime, and the Panthers came back from down 0-2 with Brad Marchand leading the way to take care of business against the Toronto Maple Leafs, sending home the Leafs yet again behind probably the demon of Toronto over there in Brad Marchand. We'll talk about that, talk about the series coming up in just a second. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, May 19th. If you're just tuning in, we just finished going over the NBA Conference Finals, who I have winning each of the two series, the Pacers and the Knicks in the East, and the Timberwolves and the Thunder out West. In this segment, we turn our attention to the ice. The other playoffs going on right now, they too have just reached the conference finals. The Eastern Conference is set as the Carolina Hurricanes look to dethrone the Carolina Panthers, who have been to two straight Stanley Cup final games, series, I should say. And the Dallas Stars look to take down the Oilers, who also made it out of the West last season. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, May 19th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into a little bit of hockey talk here. The NHL Conference Finals are set. We'll start off in the Eastern Conference this time, taking a look at the conference at the battle between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers. These two teams are probably the two best in the East right now. I think the playoff bracket did a very good job of sorting itself out this season. The Canes right now are led by Freddie Anderson, who is playing out of his mind right now, shutting down a high-flying Washington Capitals offense to eliminate them in 5, while the Panthers are riding a win streak of their own. That is now 4 out of the last 5 games that they have won, led by Brad Marchand and their goalie Sergei Bobrovsky. They took care of business against the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have now lost 7 straight Game 7s. That is a ridiculous stat. Brad Marchand, of course, was the one that turned it all around. And I think really the part where the Leafs got in trouble is when goaltender Anthony Stolarz was caught vomiting, and Game 3 did not return to the series. That game ended in overtime, where Brad Marchand ended it, and in Game 7, he had a hat trick en route to an absolute devastating blowout in Game 7 that saw the Leafs, who probably are done with this exact core. You still have Austin Matthews, but Mitch Marner, free agent, it seems like, with his frustrations, that's going to be a huge swing for the Leafs to get, and they still have not won anything in a very, very long time. But the Florida Panthers are looking to make their 3rd straight Stanley Cup final. They won last year. They are the defending Stanley Cup champions. They have won the East 2 years in a row now. They're looking to win their 2nd straight and, of course, make it to the championship for 3 straight seasons. led by very much the same core. They're going up against a Carolina Hurricanes team that has been so close for so long. Freddie Anderson has been amazing in goal for them. He has been the rock that they needed him to be against the Capitals, a very high-flying, high-powered offense. He did not let anything get by him. Less than 2 goals allowed per game in that series. He was phenomenal. That offense is nothing to joke about either. You are led by an incredibly strong group of guys, not just on the first line, but you can go all the way down the third, the fourth, all the way down to the fourth line. That defense is amazing as well, led by some of the best defensemen in the league, including Jacob Slavin, who was the hero who sent the game to overtime, I should say, for the U.S. in the U.S. versus Canada game that they ultimately ended up losing. But still, he is someone that is mostly known for defense, but can show up on offense when he is absolutely needed to. And this is a Canes team that is not going to go down easy. Neither is that Florida Panthers squad. Like we said, they are battle-tested, battle-hardened, and they know how to deal with the moment. The lights will never be too big for the Florida Panthers. Instead, this series is going to be an absolute dogfight. These two teams are some of the most physical teams in all of the NHL. The Panthers specifically love to get out and hit. They are a team that is led by physicality. That is part of their identity, led by Tkachuk and Sam Bennett over there, who just love to, I won't say headhunt, but love to just be physical with the opponent, get in their heads. It is an incredible move on their part, and it's worked for them, especially with a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky behind them. But this series is not going to be easy because the Carolina Hurricanes can match that physicality, and they can deal with that physicality. The Capitals, also a physical team, they are able to deal with that with basically no issues in round 2. They've had a lot more time to rest than the Panthers have after going 7 against the Maple Leafs. It's going to be a very tight series. I'm taking the Canes to win this one. I think playing basically 3 years straight of hockey is going to take a toll on anybody. It's too much for the Panthers to handle right now, and I just don't think they have it in them to win yet another series, especially a hard-fought physical one like the Canes are going to make it. This is not going to be an easy win for the Canes, though. Freddie Anderson needs to continue to play at the level that he is playing at. He needs to continue to be someone that they can rely upon to not give up those easy goals, to stand on his head a little bit when need be. But I think if anybody can do it with the way he's playing, he is the hot goaltender right now in the NHL. So I'm taking the Canes in 6 games to take care of the Florida Panthers. On the other side of the bracket, we have a Dallas Stars team taking on a team in the Edmonton Oilers that made it to the Stanley Cup Finals last year. Both of these teams have been deep in the playoffs many a times. These two teams have met in the playoffs before. Right now, these two teams are basically polar opposites. You have on one side Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and that terrifying Edmonton Oilers offense. An Oilers offense that can seemingly put up 10 goals in just about any given night. But they're going up against a very hard and very great defensive team in the Dallas Stars. Jake Ottinger, one of the best goaltenders in the league. He is someone that if you let him get hot, if you let him get comfortable in the crease, you are not going to score a goal on him at all. These are two teams that have been looking to win a cup for a very long time. Canada has not won a cup since the Oilers last did, or I should say the Canadians last did it in 1993. It has been a very, very long time since the cup returned home to Canada. And I've been betting against this Oilers team for a very long time. I've also been betting on this Stars team for a very long time, but I have been consistently wrong about both of those things. I think Connor McDavid, who is going to go down as either the greatest or the second greatest player in the history of the NHL, depending on how many cups he can win, because ring culture is a thing everywhere. Gretzky won just about everywhere he went, and I don't think he's really ever going to catch up to Gretzky, but being called McJesus over there is no joke. He is a very special player, and he deserves a cup. He's going to get it at some point, and that some point is soon. I think the Oilers are going to give the Stars what they have been what the Stars have been kind of giving up to a lot of teams so far. The Stars have been prone to giving up a lot of goals against a very similarly high-powered offense in the Avalanche. They went 7 games. Now, I think the Avalanche's overall team, when you take a look at the goaltending, is a little bit better than the one with the Oilers, but it's probably going to be a very similar series, a hard-fought 7 games, but I think the offense of the Oilers is just a little bit better, and there were times where it looked like the Stars were going to stand absolutely no chance in that series against looked like they were never ever going to win a game against the Avs early on in that series. So it's definitely not easy. You need yet another explosion from Mikko Rantanen. And Rantanen has been amazing for about half of the postseason. He's disappeared for about half of it, and he's scored about 3 points a game in the other half of it. You need the good Rantanen to show up in this series. Otherwise, it's going to be wraps. But I'm taking the Oilers in this one to take on the Canes in the Stanley Cup final. Oilers in 7 games in this one, a very similar series to the round 1 that we saw between the Avalanche and the Stars. Stanley Cup prediction, I think the Canes take it. I just don't think that I don't think it's that sustainable to go this deep without a goaltender, even with the incredible offense that is Connor McDavid and that line. I just don't think they get it done. I'm taking the Canes to win the Stanley Cup, but we'll go deeper into that if and when that happens in the next round. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think happens in the NHL? What do you think happens in the Stanley Cup? We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention to the NFL. Some massive news from around there, some extensions both on the coaching and on the player side of things for the 49ers and the Eagles. We'll talk about that coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, May 19th, if you were just tuning in. Just finished going over all the playoffs. The conference finals are set in the NBA and in the NHL. We gave predictions for that as well as what might take place in the next round, the NBA and NHL finals. In this segment, we turn our attention to the NFL. Massive news. The owner meetings are tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit more tomorrow about exactly what is being voted on, but new language with the tush push, and many more rules. But I want to talk about the news that broke today. Nick Sirianni, the Eagles have extended him officially. The Super Bowl winning head coach has a new contract. He only had 1 year left on his deal. He now stays in Philadelphia, being paid from one of the lowest paid head coaches to one of the highest paid head coaches, now making $13 million a year. Nick Sirianni has done an amazing job. There are times where I have been critical of Nick Sirianni. And he is someone that I still don't think is necessarily a great head coach in the NFL, but you don't have to be an incredible X's and O's guy to do all these things successfully. I like to point to a guy like Davey Johnson, or like Davey Martinez, I should say, with the Nationals in the MLB. He is not the best when it comes to decision-making all the time, but what he is the best in the league at is dealing with relationships. And in that Eagles locker room, when there are a lot of massive personalities, when there are a lot of massive egos being pushed around, you need to be able to deal with those personalities. And he is a big personality himself, which is why I think he is someone that can deal with it. But what Nick Sirianni has done to bring that team together, to make them show up when they need to show up, to help bring in the right guys, to bring in the right coaches, I think is incredibly impressive. Do I think he is a top 10 coach in the NFL? Fringe, not quite number 10, or definitely not in the top 5, but he's someone that you could be up there with and not be mad about. He won a Super Bowl. He's led his team to now 2 Super Bowls, going 1 for 2 there. But he has done it on the strength of a great roster rather than him being a great coach. Do I disagree with extending him? Absolutely not. You needed to keep him around. You can't move him. You can't move off of him. But I think giving him a contract like that is fair. Not the highest paid coach in the NFL, making now $13 million a year, but a coach that is at making a respectable contract as opposed to being one of the lowest paid coaches in the NFL. I think if they didn't win the Super Bowl last year, we'd be having a much different conversation about Nick Sirianni than we are right now. But still, what Nick Sirianni is able to do with this Eagles squad is incredibly impressive. I think this is a big do-or-die year for him. They lose Kellen Moore. That brain drain really affected him last year when they lost their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator to head coaching jobs. This year they lose their OC, not their DC, which I think is huge, being able to keep a guy like Vic Fangio around to keep coaching that defense, I think is massive. But I don't love the new offensive coordinator that they brought in. And I think that could spell trouble, especially with what I alluded to a little bit, seemingly a lot of momentum to ban the tush push. The tush push, I think, is a play that should not be banned. But with the Packers' proposal now having a formal written language that has been put out there to be a 10-yard penalty if you push, pick up, or otherwise make contact with your own player or try and advance your own player rather than help him advance by blocking an individual player, it's going to be really interesting to see how that vote goes tomorrow and Wednesday, because there are a lot of really interesting things that they are voting on over there. Again, I don't really know exactly how it's going to go. But Nick Sirianni being extended, I think, is huge for the future of the Eagles. You at least have some kind of stability at head coach, and you know where you're going in the future. As far as other major news in the NFL, aside from the rule changes that are potentially coming up, we have massive news out of the San Francisco 49ers. We talked about Brock Purdy getting his market value extension at $53 million for the next 5 years, but now Fred Warner, who's one of, if not the best linebackers in the entire NFL, gets his handsome extension of his own. And the 49ers have been busy this offseason. They go out there, they not only extend Brock Purdy, they extend George Kittle, they extend now Fred Warner. They are paying their guys. They are doing that, but they let a lot of talent go. They let Hufanga go. They let Greenlaw go. They traded away Deebo Samuel. They, of course, paid Brandon Ayuk last offseason. But there are a lot of guys that are due for a payday, like a Trent Williams, that is going to have a hard time finding his money now because the 49ers have had to spend in a lot of different places. This is not going to be an easy offseason for them. It definitely has not been an easy offseason for them at all. But the fact that they're locking in a lot of their key pieces for the future, like Kittle, like Purdy, like Fred Warner, like Brandon Ayuk, I think is huge for the future of the 49ers, even if it isn't going to be this Avengers-level super team that they've had for the past couple seasons. If they can keep the core around, and if they can keep the core healthy, they're going to be a very good football team, and they're going to be a threat in the NFC that, yet again, if you get good luck, you can run through. The Eagles, I think, lost a lot in the offseason. The Lions, I think, with Jared Goff at quarterback, are never going to be a true juggernaut, because if you get pass rush in his face, he is someone that will deal with it. He is not a guy that is going to be able to deal with pressure too well. Brock Purdy, I think, falls into a very similar category as Jared Goff does. They both get paid the same amount of money now, which is why I'm not angry at that contract. But the 49ers are going to have a lot of work to do. The 49ers are going to have not an easy road, despite their schedule being one of the easier ones in the NFL this season after really struggling last year due to injuries, but do not count them out. This is still a very good 49ers team, and for the people that are selling their 49ers stock because they let a lot of key guys go, you might want to hold on to it just a little bit more, because there is a lot that's going to be going on for the rest of this season and this offseason as they continue to pay people and continue to deal with that cap situation. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about that Fred Warner extension? He absolutely deserves it. What about that Nick Sirianni extension over in Philadelphia? I'd love to hear what you think. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the new rules that are going to be voted on in the NFL owners meeting tomorrow and Wednesday. We'll be right back with that here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, May 19th, if you were just tuning in. We just finished going over the major news from around the NFL, but some more news coming out today are the things that will be voted on in the reconvening of the owners tomorrow and Wednesday. Some massive things that we talked about last time include the tush push. The tush push that had a 16-16 split last time for the owners, but apparently has some very powerful backers. Of course, the Packers are the one that made the rule, or at least proposed this rule. Roger Goodell is rumored to be a proponent of banning the tush push, which would instead be replaced with a 10-yard penalty. This is something that has been in the works for a long time, and while I personally don't think the tush push needs to be banned, while I personally don't think it's a huge deal that the Eagles can do the tush push and nobody else can because they suck at it, and the Eagles have a very special set of players that can do a very specialized play, I understand that they want the game of football to be a little bit more distinct than the game of rugby, right? I understand that a little bit. I do. But at the same time, I don't support banning the tush push. Just get better at it. Just get better at defending it. The reasoning that this rule is being put in place is player safety, which, as we've been over before, it has caused a grand total of 0. That's right, 0 injuries. Nada. All season long. It's not dangerous at all. The other one is pace of play. And the only time it really ever has affected pace of play is in the NFC Championship game when Frankie Louvu tried to jump the snap count to stop it. That's not that big of a deal, right? I don't understand the reasoning for it. If you gave me a better reason, sure, I'd be here for it. I've heard reasons of the defense can't push, so why can the offense push? That's a fair reason. I agree with that reason. But that's not the reason that's being given. Do I think it's going to get banned? It seems like it is, which is massive news. But do I support that? Absolutely not. There are some other massive rules that are being voted on as well, including one proposed by the Lions that would change the way that seeding works. They were the number 1 seed last year, but the Vikings were screwed from the number 2 seed all the way to the number 5 seed because they did not win their division. Now, this is something that is being proposed not to get rid of division winners as in, but to change the seedings. And when this first came out and we first talked about it, we went through all of the different playoffs since the 7-team playoff got started. And in all but one season, which was the 2020 was the 2020 season, which was weird, so it didn't even really count. All of the NFL seedings would have changed. The 4 seed would have been a wild card team every single time except for 1 year since the 7 seed came in. And last year, the 4 seed would have been the 7 seed. So there are distinct differences in these seedings, and I don't necessarily hate it. We're having a very similar conversation in the world of college football right now, talking about how should we make these playoffs as they continue to expand them? How should we do the automatic buys? Are we giving them to conference champions, which are kind of like divisions in the NFL? Of course, it's a little bit different over there, but still, that's a kind of very similar situation. I still think divisions, conferences should get their champion in automatically, but I don't think they necessarily need to be that number 1 through 4 seed, those top seeds every single time. I like this rule by the Lions. I do. I think this is something that can positively benefit the game. We can get rid of those weird outliers where a 9-8 NFC East team or NFC South team that the 4 seed is taking on a 15-2 or a 14-3 wild card team. It changes the way that it goes, and I think teams who have an amazing regular season should be rewarded a little bit with those rules, with higher seeds. As long as the divisions still get an automatic bid, I am here for it. Because there are some times where, you need representation from all these divisions for it to feel like it matters, especially in the NFL, where you play nearly a third of your games against your division teams, which is why the divisions matter so much in the NFL and not as much in a lot of other sports. You get those automatic bids. I don't care if they're 1 through 4. I don't care if they are necessarily I don't care if they're necessarily the automatic top seeds, but they need to be automatically in the playoffs. That is the only thing that really matters to me with this new rule, which is still happening. So I'm a big fan of this, and I think this is something that's going to be passed, but I think this is going to be one of the more influential owners' meetings that there has been in a while. I believe the tush push will be banned. I believe this Lions thing will be passed, and I think they're going to change the rule for the onside kick again, giving kicking teams an extra yard closer to where you need to go so that there's more likely to be a return, or I should say a successful onside kick, because the rates of success are just abysmal over there. But there's a lot to go over, and we will go more in detail when all of these things pass tomorrow. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We'll be back tomorrow, going over everything we need to know from around the world of sports. That means some stuff from the WNBA, some stuff from the NBA, and of course, some more stuff from the NFL. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn.